All right, listen up, mortals. I'm Scully, and for this little explainer, I've got a bone to pick with how you all think about, well, me. You probably think it's a simple, lights-out kind of deal, right? You're here 1 minute, and then, poof, you're rattling around with the rest of us. Well, I gotta tell you, that idea is dead wrong. You see, in our high-tech modern world, the line between life and death has gotten seriously blurry. So, come on, let's rattle some cages and get to the bottom of it. Today, we are digging into why figuring out if someone is truly dead is one of the most complex, mind-bending questions in modern medicine and law. So just forget everything you think you know. I mean, the jump in complexity is just staggering. Back in the good old days, a doctor would just hold a mirror up to your nose. If it didn't fog up, you were done. Simple. But today, oh man, between ventilators, lawyers, and all the tech, it's an absolute minefield. So, to try and sort out all this chaos, the United States came up with an official rule book. Let's crack open the law books on the great beyond, shall we? It's called the Uniform Determination of Death Act, or the UDDA for short. It was put together back in 1981 by this big President's Commission, and all the doctors and lawyers basically gave it the thumbs up. The whole point was to create one clear nationwide standard for what it means to be dead.
Okay, so the UDDA gives us 2 ways you can officially punch your ticket. First, there's the classic. Your heart and your lungs just stop for good. But the second one, that's where it gets really tricky. The irreversible shutdown of your entire brain. And that includes the brainstem.
So why should anyone with a pulse even care about a legal definition? Well, because without it, the world of the living gets real messy real fast. Organ donation can't happen. A prosecutor can't charge someone with homicide. And your family? They can't inherit your cool stuff or cash in that life insurance policy. This is the high-stakes paperwork that keeps society from falling apart.
But here's where the marrow gets messy. Because even though that law seems pretty straightforward, that second part, brain death, has kicked off this massive, soul-searching controversy. So on one hand, you have a person who is legally dead. Their brain has zero function. But on the other hand, their body can still do some pretty lifelike things. I'm talking healing wounds, fighting off infections, and in some cases, even gestating a fetus for months. So, are they dead or not?
And the culprit behind this is often this little guy right here, the hypothalamus. You can think of it as the ghost in the machine. Even when all the conscious parts of the brain are long gone, it can keep pumping out hormones, regulating body temperature, basically maintaining functions that seem undeniably alive. It's this biological echo in a body that the law considers an empty house. And that is what sparks this whole debate.
Critics, like the scientists Miller and Nair Collins, they just put it bluntly. They argue that saying an irreversible coma is the same thing as biological death is just a huge logical leap. It's kind of like saying a car with a dead engine isn't a car anymore, even if the radio and the headlights still work.
And look, this isn't just some philosophical argument for a classroom. This stuff has profound, real-world consequences. Let's look at a few unbelievable cases that have pushed these rules to their absolute limits.
But first, you gotta understand something crucial. Despite it being called the Uniform Act, not all states play by the exact same rules. A few, like New Jersey, have these unique exemptions, usually for religious reasons, that let families object to a brain death diagnosis. Now keep that in mind, because it's about to become very, very important.
Okay, so take the case of a boy known only as TK. He was diagnosed with total brain failure when he was just 4 years old. His body was kept on life support, and for 20 years, that body continued to grow and fight off infections. 20 years. And then there's Zach Dunlap. He was declared brain dead after an accident. Right as the doctors were about to harvest his organs, his cousin, totally desperate, scraped his foot with a knife, and Zach moved. He woke up. He even remembered hearing the doctors pronounce him dead.
And that brings us to the really famous case of Jahi McMath. She was a teenager who, after some complications from a routine surgery, was declared legally brain dead in California. But her family, they absolutely refused to accept it. So what did they do? They moved her clear across the country to New Jersey, specifically to use that state's religious exemption law to keep her on a ventilator. For almost 5 years, her family reported that she showed signs of development, things that medical experts insisted were impossible for a patient who was brain dead. This case just ignited a national firestorm over a huge question. Who gets to define death? Is it the doctors, the law, or a family's faith?
So you see, what these cases really do is force us to ask a much bigger question. What are we actually defining as the end of a life? Is it the end of the biological body, or is it the end of the person?
And this basically splits people into two main camps. You've got the whole brain approach, which is our current legal standard, and it says the organism is dead. The whole brain's gone, it's over. But then there's the higher brain approach, which asks a totally different question. Is the person gone? It argues that once the capacity for consciousness is lost forever, the person is dead, even if the brainstem keeps the biological machine humming along.
What all of this really shows us is this profound shift in how we understand death. We used to think of it as a single moment, right? Like a light switch being flipped off. But what modern science is showing us is that it's not an event at all. It's a process, a gradual shutdown of incredibly complex systems.
Which, of course, leaves us with the ultimate and pretty unsettling question. In this deep gray area between a beating heart and a silent mind, between a living organism and a conscious person, where do we, as a society, draw the final line? And who gets to decide?